Have you ever been asked to tell a story and just completely frozen up? That's exactly what happened to a woman named Mrs. Bantry. She was sitting with a group of friends, all of them sharing thrilling, mysterious tales. Her friends, including the sharp Sir Henry and the ever-observant Miss Marple, were all looking at her, waiting for her contribution. But Mrs. Bantry insisted she had nothing to tell. Her life, she said, was just too ordinary. It was all about managing servants, arguing with her husband Arthur over horse races, and, well, her garden. Sir Henry, trying to coax a story out of her, teased, "Come on, tell us a story about your garden. Poison bulbs, deadly flowers, the herb of death." Suddenly Mrs. Bantry's expression changed. "That's funny you should mention that," she said slowly. "The herb of death. It reminds me of something that happened years ago. An incident at a place called Clotterham Court." Her husband, Colonel Bantry, nodded. "Ah, the Sir Ambrose Percy affair. Yes, a very strange case indeed. You should tell it, Dolly." "So, Mrs. Bantry began, a bit reluctantly. "Well," she said, "Arthur and I were staying with an old friend, Sir Ambrose Percy. One day, a terrible mistake was made in the kitchen. A bunch of foxglove leaves were picked along with the sage from the garden. You see, foxglove is quite poisonous. These herbs were then used to stuff a duck for dinner that night." She paused, looking at her friends. "We all ate the duck. And we all became terribly ill. But one person didn't survive. A young girl, a ward of Sir Ambrose. She died." Miss Marple let out a soft gasp. "How dreadful." "Yes, Mrs. Bantry said. "And that's the story." Her friends stared at her, completely baffled. Sir Henry was the first to speak. "My dear lady, that can't be all. That's a tragedy, of course, but it's not a mystery. It was just a horrible accident." A small, thin smile appeared on Mrs. Bantry's face. "Oh, there was more to it," she said. "But I'm not a good storyteller. If I tell you the other details, you'll figure it out immediately. It won't be a proper mystery." Sir Henry sat up straight, a glint in his eye. "A challenge. You're challenging our intelligence. You'll give us the facts, and we have to solve the case. I love it. Let's investigate." And so, the investigation began, right there in the living room. Miss Marple, in her gentle way, started asking the questions. "Tell us about the people who were there, dear." Mrs. Bantry described the scene at Clotterham Court. "First, there was Sir Ambrose Percy himself. He was a frail man in his 60s, always courteous, but he had a weak heart. Then there was Sylvia, his ward. She was young, beautiful, and utterly charming, though perhaps not the sharpest tool in the shed. Sylvia had a best friend named Maidway, who was plain but intensely loyal to her. And of course, there was Sylvia's fiancé, a handsome young man named Jerry Lorimer. Finally, there was Mrs. Carpenter, Sylvia's guardian, a respectable woman who watched over everything with a quiet, observant eye." The group of friends started piecing it all together. Sir Henry posed the central question: if this was a murder, who was the intended victim? "It doesn't make sense. Why would a killer poison an entire dinner party just to get rid of one person? It's far too risky. Anyone could have died." They debated this for a while. Could the poison have been meant for Sylvia? If so, who would want to harm such a sweet, innocent girl? Her fiancé, Jerry. Maybe he was tired of her. Her friend, Maidway. Perhaps she was secretly jealous of Sylvia's beauty and engagement. Or Mrs. Carpenter, the guardian. Did she have some hidden motive? Then, Dr. Lloyd, another friend in the room, had a crucial insight. He was a medical man, and he knew a thing or two about poisons. "Foxglove," he said, "is the plant that gives us the drug digitalis." "And what is digitalis used for?" He looked around the room. "It's a heart medication. In small, controlled doses, It can strengthen a weak heart. But in a large and controlled dose, it's a deadly poison, especially for someone who already has a heart condition. Everyone immediately understood. The intended victim wasn't the young girl, Sylvia, at all. It was Sir Ambrose Percy. His weak heart would make him uniquely vulnerable to the poison. The killer knew that while everyone else would get sick, Sir Ambrose would be the one to die. So, who would want to kill Sir Ambrose? Sylvia was his ward. She probably stood to inherit his fortune. Her fiancé, Jerry, would benefit as well. The case seemed to be pointing directly at the young couple. They could have conspired to poison the old man, collect the inheritance, and live happily ever after. It seemed like a classic motive. But then, a quiet voice cut through the speculation. It was Miss Marple. She had been listening patiently, her knitting needles clicking softly. "You know," she began, "you are all assuming that the poison was meant for Sir Ambrose." Sir Henry looked confused. "But of course. The doctor just explained it." "It makes perfect sense, does it?" Miss Marple asked. "There's another possibility. What if the person who died was the intended victim all along, Doctor?" Lloyd shook his head. "But that brings us back to the original problem. Why poison a whole table of people just to kill one girl? It's illogical. Not if the killer didn't care who else got hurt," Miss Marple said softly. "Not if the killer was so consumed by their motive that they were willing to risk everything, even their own life." She looked directly at Mrs. Bantry. "Sometimes, older gentlemen can fall in love. A desperate, irrational kind of love. They can become obsessed." A silence fell over the room. The implication was shocking. Miss Marple continued, her voice gentle but firm. "What if Sir Ambrose himself was the killer? What if he was madly in love with his beautiful young ward, Sylvia? He couldn't bear the thought of her marrying another man, of losing her forever. His love twisted into a jealous obsession. So, he devised a plan. A terrible, reckless plan. The picture she painted was horrifying. Sir Ambrose, the frail, courteous old gentleman, secretly planting foxglove leaves among the sage in his own garden. He knew what would happen. He knew Sylvia would die. And he was willing to get sick himself, even risk his own life, to make it look like a tragic accident. He was creating a situation where no one would ever suspect him. He was the grieving guardian, a victim himself. It was the perfect, twisted cover. After Miss Marple finished, everyone turned to look at Mrs. Bantry. She had been listening intently, her hands clasped in her lap. She took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly what happened. After Sir Ambrose died a few years later from his heart condition, I received a letter from him. He had written it before the poisoning, a confession, just in case. He explained everything. His obsession with Sylvia, his jealousy. He couldn't let her go." She paused for a moment, then a faint smile returned to her lips. "Of course," she added quietly, "I changed all the names. Sir Ambrose, Sylvia, Claude Hamcourt, none of them were real." She looked around at her friends, who were all staring at her, and who found respect in their eyes. "As they say in the magazines," she concluded, "all characters in this story are entirely fictional." And just like that, the woman who claimed she couldn't tell a story had just told the best one of the night. It goes to show that sometimes, the most ordinary lives hold the most extraordinary secrets. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysteries.